Truth or consequences? Sharon Horne-Ellstrom here, day 1125 of What's She Up To Now, documenting my journey as I transitioned from the offline brick and mortar corporate world of business to the online world of business. A couple of years ago, got divorced, more than a couple of years ago, but finally separated our assets and needed to find something else to do. Was too old to really go. I didn't want to go back to things I'd done before or things I'd done with my ex-husband. I wanted to explore, for the probably first time in my life, what I was really curious about and interested in, what I had always wondered about and what I had always wanted to explore more of. And so that was the online world. I'd always been interested in it from the invention of the internet, because yes, I was around for the days of the invention of the internet. And for actually computers, I remember in college, we did punch cards. I had to take Fortran and COBOL and learn how to do punch cards. That's how old I am, and I'm cool with that. But it's fun to see the transition and the move in technology. And so when the internet came out, it was right as my son was born. And I remember having a newborn, staying up all night on the internet exploring things because I was so fascinated by it. Now, as a nerdy engineer and person that's interested in science and technology and math and things, I found it absolutely fascinating. And the access to information. I've always been a person that loves to learn and study and grow and find out information and from different sources. And so to me, it was like an absolute positive gold mine. And I was busy in corporate America, and it allowed me to do things in corporate America that I couldn't otherwise do. I don't think people realize the power and it's a double-edged sword, right? There's power in being able to have access to lots and lots of information, but there's also responsibility that comes along with that. We need to remember that we have to filter that information, just like, the old days of buyer beware and, watching television and things. What you see isn't necessarily the truth. And so I was thinking about truth or consequences today. Really, I was thinking about truth or consequences because we're talking about spiritual soap for our Get Up and Go challenge today, 26 today. And it was applying the soap framework to the spiritual aspects of our life, our being. And that got me to thinking and being honest about what part of the soap framework I personally have struggled with. And in the beginning, it was the clear picture of where I was at the given moment, or where I am at now today in the given moment with respect to my spiritual development, or my physical, my mental, my emotional, my financial, my contribution, and my relationships. Part of the beginning of the soap framework is just stopping and saying, okay, where am I at right now? Because if I don't know where I'm at right now, how do I get to where I'm going? I have to know my starting point. And it doesn't have to be a huge, big deal, but I got to be honest about it. If I want to get to, where do I want to go? If I want to get to Texas, and I'm in Wisconsin, which I happen to be in Wisconsin, I want to get to Texas, I can't map out a path from California or from New York or from Canada or from Alaska. I have to map out my path, my plan, from exactly where I'm at right now, from Hudson, Wisconsin to, I want to go to Fredericksburg, Texas and visit because that's where my mom is. I have to map out an exact way of getting there. Whether it's I'm going to hop on a plane, I'm going to get in a car. I'm not going to get a plane ticket from, Washington State if I'm living in Hudson, Wisconsin. I'm going to get a plane ticket from Minneapolis, St. Paul, because that's the nearest international airport, to probably San Antonio or Austin, Texas, whichever one gives me a direct flight, because I'm taking a direct flight wherever I go these days. As I got older, I realized I used to love layovers when I was younger because I liked stopping in new cities, and yeah, the airport isn't a direct representation of that place, but it was fun to see the different environments and spend a couple of hours there, and if I had time, get out and see some things in that particular city. So I loved layovers and stopovers. But now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, no, I just want to get there. Put me on the plane, give me a direct flight. I want to sit in one seat. I just want to get there. And so to me, airplane travel isn't about fun so much anymore as it is about getting to my destination in the quickest, fastest, easiest way possible, and the most direct way possible. So we have to be super honest with ourselves. We have to tell the truth to ourselves. Now, truth or consequences. I kind of laughed as I typed this today because normally when I grew up, you told the truth or there were going to be consequences. If I didn't tell the truth to my parents on anything, even a little thing, there were going to be consequences. I didn't tell my parents the truth one time when I walked home from a neighboring town with 3 of my girlfriends, and there were consequences. I was grounded for like a month. And it wasn't that there was a bad truth. I just didn't want to tell them, and I didn't want to call them, and I didn't want to wake them up after midnight to come and get us. And so we decided, we'll just walk home. Well, it turns out it took us till about 5 o'clock in the morning, which freaked our parents out. Remember, this was pre-pagers or cell phones or pay phones. On country roads, you don't have pay phones. So it was a super stupid thing to do. I realize that now. At 15, you don't just walk home. You call your parents and you get a ride. But sometimes teenage girls, and we don't make the best decisions, right? We don't think through the consequences of our actions. And back then, guess what? You were held 100% responsible for, at least in my family, everything you said, everything you did, and you had to own up for it. You either learned from it if it didn't turn out the way you wanted, or you got to take credit for the things that did work out the way you wanted. So 100% responsibility. Nowadays, there's a whole lot of people doing stuff that is, below the line, unethical, illegal, immoral, fraudulent, wrong, deceitful, illegal. Whether it's illegal or immoral, to me it's all the same thing, but it's below the line. And they're not being held accountable. And they're not being held accountable in the public eye. Like the news media used to cover actual facts and news stories, and they would say, here's the situation, and they didn't tell you what to think. They'd let you think for yourself. So a lot of us older people, a lot of us older people looked for the facts, looked at it, and then drew our own conclusions, and had actual discussions about things that were going on in the world. Now, we didn't have the internet and all this convoluted stuff and all the manipulated stuff, so it was different. We knew that the information we were getting was real information, not propaganda, not opinion. And now, I don't even know, I haven't watched the media for a long time, so I'm not sure when it flipped, but it is absolutely positively flipped to the point of, I stopped participating in watching the media in the 80s as part of a training program I was involved in my corporate America job at the time. And I am so grateful and happy that I did that, because I have a whole different perspective and way of looking at the world than most of the people around me, which they think I'm crazy because I don't watch the news and I don't listen to the media and I don't follow the propaganda. However, every 4 years, due to social media and the internet, every once in a while I get sucked into the fray, and I just shake my head at myself for doing it, because it makes me mad when I act in ways or I participate in conversations that aren't adding value to myself or the world or anything as a whole. It just seems like such a waste of time. I had a nice talk with my son yesterday, and he's like, yeah, I'm just not participating in anything outside of me that just doesn't matter anymore. And he's absolutely right. There's certain topics and certain things we all get dragged into, and we all get sucked into, and we all feel strongly about, yet the things we're actually doing have no effect on the thing we're upset about. So instead of just being upset and eating away at and hurting ourselves, we either, number one, go do something that will really make a difference, or number two, we let it go and we spend our time and energy on things that are important and urgent to us that really will make a difference in our life. So I got off on the truth or consequences thing because I was thinking about, remember Truth or Dare was a game when we were kids where you play Truth or Dare. Now I think kids only really see it in the movies. Maybe they still play it. I don't know. But when we were teenagers and we were kids, we would play Truth or Dare. I dare you to eat that blade of grass. Even as kids, we would do that, and it was fun. I dare you to ride that horse. We had some horses that were like scarier than others, and so we would dare each other to do things like that. It was funny. I dare you to go in the kitchen and sneak the cookies. Those are the kind of things we used to do as kids. But if we got busted, if we got caught, guess what? There were consequences. Hey, if you got caught doing something you weren't supposed to do, you probably had to do extra chores. You had to probably shovel out the barn for a week or do something, or do your sister's chores in my family. Hey, if you did something or got in a fight with your sister, you were probably going to have to pick up some of the things that were their responsibility. So, truth or consequences. I actually love it. And I always raised my kids thinking, the punishment fits the crime. Like if they would do something that was a little off or they wanted to teach them a lesson about, I wouldn't like ground them for a month. I would say, okay, this is a situation, what's the lesson that they can learn from this, and how can I teach them that lesson while holding them responsible and accountable for the behavior that they did, the mistake. If they were fighting, my son used to like to pad my daughter up because they would get home on the bus before I would get home from traffic some days back in corporate America, and he was playing paintball. My son was a semi-pro paintball player when he was a teenager, and he would pad his sister up, and then he would have her run from tree to tree in the yard and shoot paintballs at her. So they would get into mischief. So I had to come up with, okay, what's a punishment to fit that crime? And how can I teach him that it's not okay to pad your sister up and shoot paintballs at her? She was all safe and masked up and padded up. And it was funny. And so how are you trying not to laugh like yet teach them the lesson that they need to be responsible, and that, hey, when you guys beat me home at night on the bus, you go home, you have a snack, you start doing your homework, and then I'll be home in a few minutes. But you don't use it as an opportunity to practice your favorite sport as your sister. It'd be like using your sister as a punching bag if you want to be a boxer. No, not an okay idea. So truth or consequences. I would love to know if you grew up, remember the game show, Truth or Consequences? I would love to know your thoughts about truth or consequences and people being responsible and accountable toward their actions, the things they do, the things they say. I think that email and social media and technology and the distancing between human beings, especially working remotely, and I think COVID is probably going to really exacerbate this. We feel like there's like this little shield of protection around us when we're sending messages through email. I'm like, I would never put anything in email or in writing or in a letter or on a phone message that I would not say to your face, to someone's face. I would never do that. Why? To me, that's below the line behavior. And I'm not being responsible for my actions. I'm not being true to who I really am. I'm not going to show up as an a-hole in email and then pretend I'm so sweet and nice in person. Nah, not going to happen. What you see is what you get. Consistency, and this is who I am. And I've pretty much always been that way, when in a world where a lot of people weren't that way. A lot of people were, and I had an air of not being my whole self in corporate America, because I figured I'd never get a job if I was really told it like it was all the time. And then I found out in my last corporate America job, I told it like it was all the time. I was 100% me. My favorite job ever in corporate America. Probably the only reason I would ever consider going back to working for someone else again, or I work with people, but working with someone on a partnership or on some kind of a formal arrangement basis would be because I could just be me. Otherwise, I wouldn't even consider it. Totally wouldn't even consider it. So truth or consequences. Have you ever been in a situation where you told the truth and there were consequences, or you didn't tell the truth and there were consequences? Because it goes both ways. I say it's so much easier just to tell the truth and be who you are than to pretend you're someone you're not, or to tell stories. And a lot of times I think people convince themselves that what they're spewing is their truth when it totally isn't, right? That's when I feel bad, because I know when I hear people verbatim quoting books or resources or the media or the news, when I hear those phrases being repeated all the time, I know that might be them, that might be what they truly believe, but a lot of times it's not. It's just what they've convinced themselves that this is my truth, and it may or may not be. And it's hard work to sit down and ask ourselves, God, I just said that, but do I even really believe that? Do I think that? Where did that even come from? Who does that belong to? It's really interesting. I learned a long time ago. I don't even remember when it was. It's got to be at least a decade ago now. I was doing some understanding myself better, following a health challenge work, and I listened to a lot of really interesting people. I got on, I think it was Darius Berazanti. I never say his name right. I think he's still online, actually. I don't follow him anymore, but I did for several years. And I would listen to a lot of the people he would have on his, back then it was a tele-seminar, it was a tele-show where he'd have guests on. It was just, I think he still does a lot of audio. He might have gone to video. I stopped following him before those changes, but I have seen things from him. Every once in a while, a post from him on social media. But I learned from a lot of people, and one of the things and the people I learned from was I can't remember her name. I can see her face. Anyway, one of the ladies said, who does that belong to? Ask yourself when you're listening to Rika. I want to say Rika was her name, or it wasn't Ricky, it was Rika. Who does that belong to? Because a lot of the thoughts and beliefs and feelings that we have and the things we get all worked up about, we can think about them and we're like, okay, well, do I really believe that? Do I really believe that religious thing? And I was raised Catholic, and there's a lot of things in the Catholic religion that I bought into automatically and did, and then I started to question them. And then after my sudden cardiac arrest, I really started to question things in my religion and my faith and my belief and my spirituality and things. And I asked myself, well, who does that belong to? Do I really believe that? Well, a lot of my religious beliefs belong to my upbringing, belong to my mother because she was a Catholic, because her parents were Catholic. And is that a good reason to be a practicing Catholic? Maybe it is for people, but maybe it's not. Maybe you really do feel in alignment with the values and the beliefs and the practices of Catholicism, and maybe you don't. And you have to ask yourself, where did that come from? Who does that belong to? And decide what is right for you moving forward. And really, what's right for you. Not what you think is right for you, not what other people think is right for you, but what feels right to you. It's up to each and every one of us, and I think this falls under truth or consequences, to determine where is that line in the sand. What is me being a good, continually improving person, or what is me just out to get what I want for myself, everyone else be damned, and what is below the line? What is unethical, immoral, illegal, wrong, evil to me? And that line is different for each of us, and it's up to us to decide what is or isn't right for us. Same is true with our morals and values and things. I am a absolute positive monogamist. I don't believe in infidelity. I have a personal core value problem with infidelity, more than one partner. Not my thing, never going to be my thing, never has been or will be my thing. Don't believe in it. So I don't tolerate that for myself or other people. Lots of other people think it's perfectly all right to be married and divorced 5 or 6 times, to have different partners simultaneously, to sleep around, whatever they call it these days. Hookups, I guess, lots of hookups, whatever you call it. A lot of people believe that that's perfectly okay and fine for them. It will never be right for me. And that's what's important, is what is right for you and what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Again, I say, do what you want to do anything you want, as long as it doesn't harm or hurt other people. That's my go-to rule. I will tolerate, do what you want, but if you're harming other people, I'm never going to condone it. People that hurt other people physically, mentally, spiritually, or any way, financially, I think that's wrong. I think that's unethical, wrong, immoral. It's evil. To me, that's evil. That's how I define evil. And for them, they've obviously given themselves permission and said that it's okay for them to do that. Well, go ahead, let it be okay for you, but it's never going to be okay in my book, and for me. It's never going to be for me or the people I love and care. But again, they get to decide for themselves as well. As much as we try to raise our kids and influence our significant others and our friends and family to be a certain way, it's never up to us. They get to decide what's right for them, and we don't always agree. Some people think it's right to work for all the time. I used to think it was right to work all the time. I thought it was right for me. It actually is right for me, but it isn't right for the vast majority of the people in the world, right? Most people don't want to work all the time. They want to work and play and have fun and have relationships and do all kinds of things, and work for them is just a component of that. That's what's right for them, and you have to determine what's right for you. Get Up and Go Challenge, of course, was about spirituality, spiritual soap. Today, Centering Challenge, it was a pretty good one today. It was about, I gotta peek and look it up. It was about talents developed in quiet places, character in the full current of human life. So today we were sharing and talking about and thinking about, where do we develop our talents? How do we develop our talents? I'm like, quiet places, yes. Practice, yeah, pretty much in solitude. When we're practicing things, we're usually practicing by ourselves to get better, right? If you're practicing a sales pitch, if you're practicing a speech or a presentation, if you're practicing asking someone out, if you're practicing whatever, usually those talents and those skills, we discover them in quiet times of solitude and thinking, and in quiet places, walks in nature, whatever. But and we practice in there too. We usually practice in private, right? Different things. And then how we actually engage and develop our characteristics and things that are important to us is engaging with other human beings in relationships, in life, in the actual doing and outdoing with other people to see the impact of the things that we learn and our talents and our skills is with other people. So we can develop our skills and talents in a vacuum, yet we don't know how they impact us or the rest of the world until we actually apply them into human exchange and human interaction. So that was our centering challenge today. Get up and go challenge. Oh, our idiom today was don't put the cart before the horse. Don't put the cart before the horse. And that's kind of a funny one because it reminds us that some things it doesn't matter what order we do them in. Other things, it's really, really important. If you get dressed and you put your pants on before your underwear, that is an example of putting the cart before the horse. And people are going to laugh at you most of the time. Unless you were in probably the Madonna days when they wore the bras on the outside. I don't know. So weird. Anyway, fashion is, a mystery to me, obviously. So don't put the cart before the horse. That was a fun one. That's been around since the 15th century. People have used that expression, although I think it's falling out of favor. And more likely now people use things like, okay, well, that was ass backwards, or you sure messed that up. Usually it's with some expletives. When we make a mistake or do something wrong, but that's just part of our process. It's part of the learning process. We're not going to do things right the first time, but if we actually think about, well, how do we need to do things? How do we need to launch this new product? How do we need to go about achieving a goal or an objective? Sometimes it doesn't matter what steps we take, in what order. Other times it really matters what steps we take. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. I think about building our house. My ex-husband and I built a beautiful home, and we were the general contractors for that. Well, the whole process of deciding we were going to build our own home, once we made that decision and that choice, the ball had to start rolling. But first we had to decide, where did we want to live? We had to get a piece of land. What did we want our house to look like? What did we want it to include? I actually drew our entire house out on some architectural software. I drew and planned the whole house out, and then we actually took it to an architect and had them draw the blueprints from that model so that we could get the exact house we want. And then we had to do things to build it. Well, we had to hire the different people, but we had to do it in order, right? You need to you need to clear the land and dig the hole to build your foundation. We live in Wisconsin where we have basements, so you have to do that first, and then everything has to fall in order. You have to get all your pipes and your plumbing and your electrical and heating and everything in before you can sheetrock the walls. So everything has to be done in a certain order for a project like that. And then other times it just doesn't matter, right? If I'm doing there's a lot of things that we do that it just doesn't matter what order we do them in. But sometimes if we do create and plan an order, we get better results. All right, that is all I've got today. I'm working on a lot of stuff. I get to hang out with my brand new granddaughter today because it is her parents' 5th anniversary. And she is 20 days old. She's a freshie. They call them freshies. I think it's so cute. She's a little freshie, so I'm excited to hang out with her today. So I'll be doing my work, but I'll be just plugging it in when I can when she's napping. Any questions, hit me up. Ask me in the comments below. Otherwise, I will be with you tomorrow. Have an absolutely fantastic and amazing day. Bye. Hey, think about truth or consequences.